Hey, you, right there. Welcome to Caching in the Northwest. You know, this is the podcast from the birthplace of geocaching right here in the great Pacific Northwest. Now, it's Thursday night at 9 p.m. Pacific. I'm Chris of the Northwest, and we're going to talk about geocaches and geocachers from here and all around the globe. So while you're driving all around town for an adult Happy Meal toy, we'll be caching in the Northwest.
And tonight we'll be talking about tips and tricks. You know, they're a set. You can't just do tips without tricks. You got to have them both. Helpful to know when geocaching while you travel. Live audience, what do you think about it? Chime in. We love to hear from you. You make the show fun. We can't wait to hear what you have to say about caching while traveling. But first, well, it's time to bring in our cruising chimp. Some say he says the bed is the couch of the bedroom. And others say a communication error is when his microphone doesn't work. A land monkey error is when his mic does work. All we know is he's called Land Monkey.
It's so nice to be back. Feeling the love.
Were you gone?
Exactly. All right. Good to be back here. It's good to see you guys. It's been a while. It's nice that the podcast is still going. You guys didn't decide to retire it while I was gone.
We were going to move it and not tell you.
Not tell me. Lock the door, change the lock.
And change the passwords and change the keys,
yeah. You should have. Too late now. All right.
Get you your cardboard box and walk you to the door.
That's fun. Yes. It is good to be back. It is good to be back with all of you in the live audience. Missed hearing from all of you folks every week, and we're excited to be here and chatting about travel caching and caching as your tour guide while you're traveling. But before we get into any of that, I've got to get myself back into the swing of things here and throw out the quick reminder that we appreciate the support of our patrons who help to keep this podcast coming each and every week. And a thanks to Land Sharks, one of our corporate Denali level sponsors. Now, we don't have a special message from Land Sharks right now because they are out on one of the Land Sharks travel adventures right now. I think they're getting near the tail end of the particular adventure they're on. But if you want to find out more about future Land Sharks travel adventures, well, just go check out their website at landsharkswithaz.ca. You can go click on the travel icon on the far side there and find out what adventures are coming up that you might be able to participate in. We also want to show a huge amount of appreciation and a big thanks to our other corporate Denali level sponsor, and that is Gold Country Geotourism. Visit exploregoldcountry.com to learn more about the geo tour in the region. And folks, if you're listening live to the podcast and you've gone and checked out the new geo tour, well, share about it. Let us know what you think of exploring Gold Country. And folks, for any and all of you, if you want to know more about supporting this here podcast, well, why don't you head on over and click that Patreon link on the cachingnw.com website. Did you miss that?
I thought my screen froze there for a moment.
I think you caught up for a few weeks worth of pausing all in once.
There you go.
Hey folks, it's time for the glow. And you may ask what a glow is, but before you ask, we need more of them. You may not even know what it is, but you need to send one in. Now, what is a glow? Why, it's the geocaching log of the week. Yes, I didn't even wait for them to ask.
I was going to say, I noticed Chris is answering his own questions now.
Yes, I talk to myself. I answer. I usually like the answers I give to myself. So there you have it. Hey, whether you wrote it or whether you read it, we want to hear about it because, thank you. Thank you. Now we've got the chat jumping in when my hosts decide not to answer the glow. Now, I did pause them and didn't really give them a chance to answer, but thank you, MC3 Cats. You're a true friend. Whether you wrote it or whether you read it, we want to hear about it because great logs simply make geocaching better. You can send an email or a recording to feedback@cachingandw.com. You can call into 253-693-TFTC and show us how you glow.
Yeah, we wish somebody would do that. Call in to 253-693-TFTC, and then we can hear you read the glow. But instead, you're stuck with me. This week's glow was from a cache GC9YRA1, Foster Park, in memory of my childhood. I have no memories of my childhood. They're too long ago, and I've forgotten them. But
Is Foster Park frightening in the dark?
maybe.
It's I forget. Is it McKinley Park?
It's Jurassic Park.
Oh, Jurassic Park. Yeah,
MacArthur Park, but or Jurassic Park, yeah, depending on the version.
Yeah, okay. I'm thinking of a different Fosters, but that's Home for Imaginary Friends. No, that's different too. All right, let's go to the log. On today's episode of Rookie Mistakes Made by a No Longer Rookie Cacher While Hunting for an FTF, the importance of situational awareness and proper footwear. It all started while I was out running some evening errands. As I get back to my car after finishing up at store number 1, I decided to check my GeoGo app and take a glance at the newest tab. To my surprise, there's a brand new cache nearby and nobody has claimed it yet, despite being published for 2 days. I pull up the directions. Google says 15 minutes away. So away we go. I arrive to this secluded park, park my car, and get out to start the hunt. Nobody else is here. Sweet! As I got out, I started looking around and enjoying the scenery. On one side is the river with a multitude of picnic tables and shady trees on the banks to choose from, ducks swimming in the water and walking on the bank. On the other side, lots of prickly pear cactus and an old windmill behind the fence dividing the park from someone's property. I can see why the CO said they enjoy this park in the cache description. Back to work. I pull up the coordinates, start following the arrow, and watch the distance get shorter and shorter until it led me to a very familiar style of hide. I remove the cache container from its home and begin to fish the log sheet out of the tube. And in this moment, I knew I had messed up. As anyone who has spent a considerable amount of time in Texas knows, walking through grass and dirt can be like walking through a fire ant minefield. Heck, I was recently in an HEB parking lot, nowhere near any plant life, and got bitten just because I had the misfortune of getting in its way. Well, when I got dressed to go run errands this evening, I was not prepared to go cache hunting in this type of environment. Being well into the month of August, I wore shorts, a t-shirt, and flip-flops. In the heat of the moment, I had not been paying attention to where I was walking. I had stepped into a small fire ant hill as I was reaching for the cache, and they did not react kindly to me crashing their party. I very quickly felt a stinging sensation on my ankles and the tops of my feet. I looked down and realized my fatal error. I quickly dashed the 150 feet or so back toward my car, trying to brush these demonic creatures off my feet. There were probably 15 or 20 in total between both feet, so it could have been worse. However, in the moment, it was not fun. After what seemed like an eternity, probably 90 seconds, I had vanquished all of these angry cache guardians from my ankles and my shoes. Cache in hand, I finally unrolled the log sheet. The moment of truth. Is it blank? It is. I put ink to paper, replaced the log, and carefully replaced the cache to its home to be guarded by these little red jerks. After this experience, I'm not sure if FDF stands for first to find or found the fire ants. Either way, I will happily claim it. To all future finders, you have been properly warned. Heed my advice, lest ye suffer the same fate. If mine doesn't get picked, I hope you at least get a kick out of my misfortune. The things we do for geocaches. Thanks again, guys. 614 Buckeye, or 614 if you prefer. But
well, first of all, I like Buckeyes. And I believe 614 is an Ohio State area code.
I sense a theme.
Seems to ring a bell.
604 is a BC area code, so yeah, very close. My goodness, Buckeye,
Wow.
614 Buckeye. That is, thank you for sending that in. And that is quite the story. I was typing in the chat as Jim was reading, like, at what point when they're looking at, wow, 2 days and no one's claimed the FTF, like at some point I'd be going, why
There's
is
more to the story. Yeah.
that?
GSM times 2 suggests perhaps because the Red Ants successfully defended their territory.
Apparently, yeah.
Indeed.
Those
Indeed they
jerks.
did. Wow, crazy. Well, glad
The guy earned an FTF.
no kidding, right? Yeah. Glad that Buckeye is okay after that harrowing adventure, and really do appreciate sending in a great glow for Jim to read, because I think we all enjoy listening to Jim read the glows.
You guys really need to
You
do that
know,
more.
I don't know if Jim saw this. GSM times 2 says Wits End reads them better than I can.
Oh, I don't know about that, but thank you very much.
And
You're very kind.
MC3 Cats likes it when you read the glow.
Aw, there you go.
All right. What do you guys want? You're buttering me up for something. I don't know.
Yeah. So I mean, I understand fire ants, but I don't have a large history of fire ants. What footwear other than, like metal shoes could you wear better? I mean, I'm thinking the
I'm thinking
flip-flops,
not flip-flops is the starting point.
flip-flops, at least you could get them off quickly, right? You could toss your shoes off and then just start wiping down your feet with your hands and whatever. I mean,
Yes.
if you had tennis shoes, would they crawl in and then, you have to, or if you were wearing boots, does that, I mean, boots for me is longer to take off to get to, those jerks chewing on my ankles.
Yeah, all right. I see your logic there.
If you have any advice, please share it. Now, it was warm, a warm summer evening on a train bound for no way. Doc Martens.
It's an
Okay.
option.
It is.
That's an
It
option.
is. I'm just curious. So if you have experience with fire ants, let us know what you would wear in warm weather to protect your feet.
Anti-gravity boots.
There you go. That's the option.
That's about the only option, right?
Yeah.
Fire boots.
All right. Where are we here? Bring us back online here.
I was told that if you see an area that doesn't have grass or plants, it's a fire ant nest. I watched them and I saw many of them at Geo Woodstock.
Okay.
I'm thinking not the last Geo Woodstock. Maybe the one.
Yeah, we don't really have a lot of those up here, so must have been a previous Geo Woodstock.
Maybe Texas.
That would make sense.
That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah.
Hey, folks, if you want to join in tonight's chat, and I know you do because you guys are fantastic, use the hashtag travel to add to tonight's show. And of course, if you want to talk about something, say, other than travel, why don't you use the hashtag FATAS for the after show? And we'll chat about that in a little bit. And of course, we want to know, I guess I say, of course, a lot. Use the hashtag podcast baking to tell us what you're cooking tonight. And, maybe it's something about fire ants.
Ideally not, but yeah.
Oh, okay.
Unless you're cooking them with a flamethrower.
Yes,
that's acceptable.
The jet boots, which would be the option I would choose.
Yes.
You just torch everything under your feet.
So there you go. GSM times 2 said it's the Fort Worth Geo Woodstock, so the previous Geo Woodstock prior to Abbotsford, and that makes much more sense.
The
So
two previous of the upcoming.
I was going to say one prior and 3 years prior.
Yeah, exactly. As it happens.
What about a Friar Tuck? Oh, wait, we're not talking about that. What we are talking about is travel caching and tips, along with, as Wits End said, the tricks.
You got to have them all.
Exactly.
And we mentioned live audience. Throw your tips in there too. So I know nothing about traveling, so I'll just sit back and let you guys chat tonight.
That's I'm really curious to hear what some of the ideas and thoughts that come from our live audience. I know a lot of them have done plenty of traveling around. I've myself just returned from a trip to Europe and learned a few important things, tried some new things when it comes to caching and planning for caching, and honestly just had an amazing geocaching adventure travel experience. Haven't posted a ton on social media, posted a few pictures here and there, but have taken a ton of content, and it'll be coming out. Well, starting tomorrow morning, really, is the content's going to start coming out. So, looking forward to sharing that with everyone. But definitely learned a lot.
And if we're planning, why isn't JT Coffee here? That's
Ah,
perhaps.
that's right. Well, because JT Coffee, according to her social media, is in Italy right now. So
Oh,
there you go.
amazing. So
Jen?
traveling.
Just for the
Yes?
pizza.
There's pizza.
That's
there?
why she went to Italy, just for the pizza.
Oh,
Just for the pizza.
I didn't know they made pizza there. I thought that was just in Manhattan. Or
Detroit or Chicago.
yeah,
There you go.
one of those things. All right, so you traveled, you geocached together at the same time and simultaneously. I know you guys use a real GPS, real meaning in a dedicated GPSR appliance, if you care, if you know what I mean. So many people nowadays, including myself, typically I only cache by phone because, well, I'm lazy and I don't cache very hardcore. Did you take your GPSR with you? Did you take your phone with you? Did you do both? Did you go back and forth? Did you have any trouble with data roaming and things like that? How did you cache over there for getting your signals?
Yeah, great questions. So we cached by both GPSR and phone, and we were doing a variety of different types of caching in different areas. So it was kind of dependent on the scenario what we would use. We were based in southern England for just over a week to start with, and so really just had pocket queries loaded on the GPS for that area, as well as using the phone, but primarily we were able to use the GPSR, which we tend to prefer most times, particularly when we're out rural and hiking. We did quite a
Mhm.
bit of hiking in the woods in southern England and in the rolling hills. Um, and
Did you see
so,
a fox chasing you?
um, I did actually see a fox once, which was kind of
Mm.
cool. But
Did the lady of the lake arise from the mist?
with sword in hand, yes,
Yes. Okay.
yes. But yeah, so did that, but also had the phone and did some planning ahead and handled the roaming by pre-purchasing a European SIM
Mm.
from my phone. I think at this point in time, most people would have a phone that is unlocked. I don't know what the rules are in the States, but in Canada, by law, your phone has to be unlocked or unlockable by the service provider. So you can easily either use an eSIM if you have a newer model phone, or if you have an older model phone, as I currently do. And that's going to be changing shortly. Another story. But um, it's easy enough to just swap the sims and put one in, and it honestly worked seamlessly. I was quite pleased with how that worked.
Well, I was going to ask about the eSIM. I understand swapping the physical SIMs. The eSIM, it depends on the phone. I hear there's some of them that can handle 5, 6, 7 different SIMs. You can only have one active at a time. And you know what? We should probably explain what a SIM is.
That's a good point. So a sim is a service information module, I want to say.
Subscriber identity module. I think.
Yeah.
Anyway.
For identity. Okay, there you go. It's basically it's a teeny tiny little card the size of a micro SD card, effectively, and you insert it. So again, talking about the physical sims to start with, and you insert it in your phone. Your phone has one in it right now, because if it didn't, you wouldn't be able to use your phone
Right.
as a phone,
Right.
and you'd be able to use it as a tablet. But
Or
that is
or
what
hammer.
connects you. That little card has the information on it that allows you to connect to your service provider and use texting and mobile data and voice services.
Right. Right. If you don't have that SIM or that SIM is damaged, yeah, you can, here in the US, I believe you can make 911 calls and that's it.
That
But
sounds
yeah, it identifies you to your service provider, be that Verizon, AT&T, Orange, or whatever they use in wherever you're going, right? Rogers or Orange, or those are the only two I know.
Yeah, Rogers is Canadian, Orange is French, like in
Okay.
France. And we used Orange for this trip.
So, how did that work? Okay, well, since we're talking phones, how did the SIM card or the SIM eSIM work while you were caching, and how did you go about getting one ahead of time?
So great question. I did a little bit of research and I asked, I also inquired with a friend of mine who does a fair bit of travel, friend of the show, RCA 777, bounced some ideas off of him as well. And what I did is I used, as I said, I used Orange, and you can actually buy an Orange SIM on Amazon. So I bought it on Amazon before we went. It was $30 Canadian, and it gave me up to 15 gigs of mobile data that I could use within a 15-day period. Now, the tricky bit is it advertised that you can use it in a 30-day period. And that's kind of what I thought I was going to get. But it ran out in 15 days. And not because I used all the data. There's a trick to these things that you need to know. And that is you need to basically the moment you activate it, and you don't want to activate it until you start using it. So it's like for us, landed in England, got in the taxi, on the taxi ride to our Airbnb. I'm putting the new SIM in the phone, getting it activated and set up. Basically, within the first day, what you want to do is to go online to their website and set up an account and actually just create your account. Now, I tried doing that and I ran into some weird problems because I didn't have a French address, and that seemed to pose a problem. Now, maybe I did something wrong and there was a better way to do it. So, your mileage may vary to those, but still for 30 bucks Canadian, I got 15 days of as much data as I wanted to use. I was constantly using data, and that got us through most of the trip. I really only had to then flip back when that expired. I just flipped back to my Canadian SIM and paid $15 a day for the 2 days that I needed it outside of that, and otherwise was using the GPSR. So it worked well, but just a caveat for people that pay attention to the nuances and the details of what you need to do to make sure you get the full value out of your physical or electronic SIM.
I think the
Now,
French address is Monsieur. Just
Maybe that
in the
was the
future.
problem.
Yeah.
I know in the US we're spoiled with our data plans and such. With my particular plan, I think I have 30 to 45 countries where I can use my existing data in there at no extra charge.
Oh, wow. That is a good plan.
It's not necessarily the fastest data. It's not like the 5G, but it's there and it doesn't cost any extra.
That's a fantastic plan, Chris.
So,
Yeah. So if someone has a plan like that, and I think really what per your suggestion, what it comes down to is look into your roaming options on your provider that you have today. And maybe you just pay a little increment per month, et cetera. And you get that kind of service that Chris is talking about. But that was not available through Bell, who is my Canadian service provider. I could use, up to my normal data for $15 Canadian per day in the different European cities I was in. But I was like, well, geez, for the entirety of my trip, that's going to be real expensive. So using the Orange SIM worked really well for me.
Did it have a nice fresh smell to it?
It did. It was very citrusy every
Citrus.
time I opened the geocaching app. It's like aromatherapy while I was caching. It was very good.
And did you
Okay.
use it at all for phone calls or text messages or just for data?
I used it a little bit for texting. I honestly didn't need to phone anybody while I was
Sure.
gone, and nobody phoned me, which was really good. So I'm a big fan of people leaving me alone when I'm on vacation.
How would you know if they phoned you because your SIM wasn't in your phone, so they wouldn't have
Well,
gotten your
because
number?
what I did is when I put the new SIM in and it told me what my French phone
Mhm.
number was, I texted a
Hmm.
couple of key important personal contacts to say, "Hey, if you
Okay.
need to get a hold of me, here's the number to call me at."
I got you.
And they never called me.
Gotcha.
So either it
I-
didn't work and there was an emergency that I never found out about.
And how are you feeling now? Very relaxed, aren't you?
Very relaxed. Yeah. Can you tell?
Yeah.
Anyways,
Okay. Um,
Yeah.
I want to switch gears
Okay.
and talk about pocket queries.
Okay.
Did you, excuse me, did you set up the pocket queries before you left based on your daily travel? Does that
So
make sense?
yeah, so we had a very good idea of the different places we were going to go. So we spent over a week in the south of England and trained to a variety of different towns, and so we knew where we were going to be going. And so I had PQs already set up and ready for that. And we'll get into it a little bit later, but there was also some targeted caching that that Laura wanted to do. So that was in the works, and we had figured out some of that as well and had that in. But um, definitely there was pocket queries planned ahead of time and all prepared. And I'm a big GSAC fan. So
Mhm.
I really basically just had all my databases, one per country, set up in GSAC so that when I was finished in a particular country or region, I could quickly load up the GPSR for the next region. And we also made really good use of our tablet, our Samsung tablet, using a geocaching app for helping us navigate Adventure Labs. And
Hmm.
should I get into the? I'm gonna get on a soapbox on Adventure Labs here.
So, did you hook your tablet up to um
Tethered to your phone.
the tether
No,
to your phone?
no, we
No.
used the tablet offline. So we loaded offline maps and really didn't use the tablet for caches at all. We used the GPS and the phone for caches, and we used the tablet to navigate us, the tablet and sometimes the GPSR to navigate us to AL stops. And I'll tell you why. Because generally I loved the Adventure Labs that we visited. I think per what I believe is HQ's original intention for Adventure Labs, they originally wanted to be selling them to tourism groups and regional governments to use
Mhm.
as like a virtual tour guide tool. And generally that's how we used them on our travels. But there's some problems with Adventure Labs. I got some problems with you, Adventure Labs, and I'm going to tell you about them now.
All right.
Uh, um, so there's so many. There are so because they've been giving them out a lot, especially recently. There are a lot, and there are a lot that, and I see Chris Brew's already seeing where I'm going to go with this. There are a lot that are sequential, and many I experienced were sequential without a damned good reason for it being sequential. And frankly, as a visitor to a new city or a new country, that's useless. Like it's super annoying and it's just there's no point in doing it. All you're doing is just being a jerk in my eyes. Um, I think Adventure Labs are a great way to tour somebody through. And if you're worried about people armchairing it, give up because if they're going to armchair it, they're going to find a way to armchair it. It's done. So
Mhm.
just stop trying to prevent that and make it a more enjoyable experience. Bring people to good places in your community. That's the point. So, thank you, Chris. Um, there was times when it could have been absolutely chaotic. But what we did is we made use of a tool that's called Labs to GPX.
Mhm.
It's probably not officially endorsed by HQ or anyone, but I will tell you, uh, it is a lifesaver when it comes to traveling and doing adventure labs, because what we were able to do is make basically effectively a big pocket query or GPX file of all of the ALs, including the sequential
Mhm.
ones, in the area we were going to go, load them all, and then we would load them all on the tablet and we'd load them on the GPS. Now, the GPS would have the caches we're doing as well as the AL stops. The tablet would have just ALs, it would have the maps and just ALs. And what that would allow us to do is have a nice big screen. So when let's take a community, for example, when we were in Bath in England, and there's a number of ALs
This
around.
is a family show. We don't want to talk about your baths.
Well, I'll also tell you a little. I did drink bathwater while I was there, but anyways, um, as we went through, and we're following this, they layer over each other, but because you have them all laid out on a nice sized tablet screen, you're able to go, okay, we're going to go here, 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 here. Oh, okay, look at the GPS. Yep, and we'll pick up these caches on the way. Okay, great. And we have a way to tour through. And oh, look, these interesting places that this is going to bring us. What a great idea! Now we can visit these things. So it really worked out well to do it that way, and it was a lifesaver, because if you are just using the AL app and not having an actual GPX of all the AL stops, you're going to be going backwards and forwards and here and there, and you're going to start getting frustrated, and you're going to go, why am I even doing these? And you're going to stop doing them. And you don't have to do adventure labs, but if they're going to take you to some places that you might want to see as a tourist anyways, it's great to bonus get some geocaching points for going there also. So I think that made a huge difference. And the other thing that that was really helpful is that we what was I going to say? Yeah, I think that's about it. I was going to say about it. So it kept us from being forced to backtrack a lot, because we could actually plan the route we wanted to do.
Okay. Sounds like you worked that mess out and kind of found a way through the tangle, as it were.
To a degree, yeah,
Okay, good job.
that worked out fairly well.
Does the monkey have an opinion, perchance?
Perhaps.
Once in a while.
Perchance.
I don't know. Why is IHAM yelling at me?
Brylang says, just say no to sequential unless you're telling a story. Even if it makes sense for the location of a bonus, there's no point in sequential.
Saskatoon.
Subway Mark
Mhm.
says just, kind of makes that point too. He says he owns 4. 1 is sequential because it tells a story, and doing them out of order would ruin the story. And they're also lined up in a linear manner. But the other 3, any order will work. So I think that qualifies as a darn good reason.
I think so. It does. And I out of all of the sequential ones that we did, and there was a lot that were sequential, and there were particular countries where they really seemed to like their sequential ALs, which was Saskatchewan. There you go. And it just seemed like they were doing it because they were doing it. And I don't know if it's because of a fear of armchairing because their country was too close to Germany. I don't know why, but it was just kind of crazy. I'm like, what are you doing? Like, why would you do this? And there was 1 or 2 where it really made sense that they were sequential, because it was taking you through a route and there was really no other way to do them. So I was like, all right, this makes sense. I'm good with this. But most of the sequential ones we did, there was absolutely no reason that they needed to be sequential. So it was kind of just an annoyance. But as a traveler, my advice is make use of that kind of tool. And I saw GSM times 2 said there's already a light lab to GPX macro for GSAC So hopefully, yeah, they will hopefully have an
Mhm.
authorized version as an API user. That would also be super helpful, because that to me is the way you, as a traveler, you address that challenge.
Now there are a couple of GSAC tools to pull Adventure Labs into GPS. GSM times two says the two that I have are sequential. Use video to take you on a pathway through the city, right? And I have one that's sequential, but it's all of 300 feet long, right? So it's not a huge, but it does progress through a story, which, doesn't make sense if you go out of order. So, um, yes. So I've used Labs to GPX before. I've used a couple other tools to do that. And you're exactly right. I mean, there's a few that are close to me that have popped up over time along the same stretch of sidewalk, and some are using one marking on the sidewalk and others are using another.
Mhm.
And now if you were to do them, there are 3 or 4 on top of each other,
Yeah.
right? And you'd be walking back and forth. Having it out as a GPX, or even, in the official geocaching app or Cachely, those are the only ones I can speak to. I don't know about the Android ones, so I'm not going to mention those. You can see the stops if they're not sequential. So at least there you can go through and, one at a time, take your 6 steps to your next Adventure Lab stop on a different adventure and go through them that way.
Yeah. That makes sense for sure.
Okay. So where were we?
I was
Now-
ranting about sequential ALs.
Yeah.
Yes. And Sasquatch got in there.
Yeah. As he
Yeah.
does.
As one does. Did you have any language issues as you were traveling about? Now, I realize England, why they speak English, they don't necessarily speak the English we're used to speaking, right? So
Yeah.
even though we use a common language, we can't communicate.
Well, and that's more of a auditory verbal situation. When everything's written down, you're pretty good. No, it's ALs, obviously in England, we're all in English, and that was fine. But I don't expect everything to be in English when I'm traveling into a foreign country. I'm a guest in someone else's country, and so the onus is on me to. Komikino has language issues all the time. There you go. Um, I expect the onus is on me to be able to work things out in their language.
Yes.
So there was a couple different things we did. I'll talk a little bit more about how I planned for Earth caches and such later, but specifically to the Adventure Labs, um, having the roaming, the data roaming, and the fact that the Adventure Lab app allows you to copy and paste text out of it is a huge advantage, because what I could do is we could effectively use Google Translate on the phone. And so open the AL, okay, there's, so,
Mhm.
we all know how an AL works, but, so you got the AL on the phone, you're like, okay, I'm going to a location. You get to the location, you're like, okay, what do I need to, okay, there's a bunch of text here. I don't really understand what I'm doing at this location. Grab the text, copy, paste into Google Translate, read through it. Okay, this is what I'm doing here. I can see this. This looks right. Okay, am I close enough? Yes, I'm within the 20 meters or whatever range you need to be in for that particular stop. Open the question comes up. It's in a foreign language. Again, grab the text, put it into Google Translate on the phone, all, taking just moments. Now I have the question. I understand what I need to do. And for the most part, um, answers were either numeric, which was easy. Every once in a while, or a name or a date, which
Mhm.
would be numeric. So that's fairly easy. Every once in a while, I would have to actually translate something and type it in. So what I would actually do is say, "Oh, well, I think this is what they're asking for." Go back to Google Translate and do the reverse. Type it in English and
Yeah.
say, "Okay, in the native language of this country, what does that say?" That actually saved my butt a couple of times doing that. So, and again, right? you don't get an AL stop, it's not the end of the world, right? Like you're in a
Yeah,
foreign
it
country,
is. You didn't complete it.
Well, unless it's sequential and you can't go on.
well, you're in a foreign country to visit and learn and experience the culture and the history and everything. Um, Getting Adventure Lab stops is a bonus. But what is good is, and I really promoted this while I was away, and I'll continue to in my new YouTube series coming out, but is using geocaching as a tour guide. And that was really what we did on this trip. And that was super handy. But that little trick about using Google Translate and the AL app, boy, that made things a lot easier. But that was all possible because I had the roaming data.
All right. So you did a ton of adventure labs, quite a few of them sequential. I have a hunch or seem to get a feeling about that. But what about regular old geocaches? I think you probably did a few of those too. And I'd be willing to bet that while you were gone a long time, you didn't have time to do every geocache there. How do you choose which caches to do? How do you make some kind of hierarchy or priority about what to look for, what to do?
Yeah, thanks, Jim. So I mean, I guess the obvious answer everybody's expecting from me is, well, Earth caches. And I
Well, on
did
Earth
do
Cache weekend, yeah, but other times, no.
I did do
Oh,
quite a number of Earth caches, absolutely. But Mrs. Monkey as well had some challenges that she was working on while we were traveling, and so we planned ahead to help her with those. One of the challenges is getting 7 icons in multiple countries. Um, and so that relates initially to a bonus cache or a challenge cache here at home in Greater Vancouver. But interesting story, we actually came across an entire trail outside of London of challenge caches, which we qualified for all of them, which was fantastic. So we were able to walk this trail along the Thames, finding challenge caches for which we qualified for all of them, and in part because we had been doing this 7 icons in multiple countries, which also helped with that, which was a lot of fun. So, oh my goodness, we lost Chris.
Well, we'll sally on without him.
Okay.
He'll be back any
Okay.
second.
That was weird. Okay. There he is.
There's
So
a button on my mouse I didn't know did something like that. So pardon me.
I'm glad you're back and that the podcast didn't end suddenly. That's good. One of the other things we did is, of course, grandfathered cache types, virtuals and webcams.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Sorry, Chris.
I meant to ask before I so rudely exited and returned. Did you know you qualified for these challenge caches before you went there?
Sorry, I'm laughing at Chris Brew's comment. The eject CNW button is what the mouse button is
That's what
called.
it is. Yeah.
That's what it apparently is. Yes, I'm.
You should put a sticker on that one for future
Oh,
reference.
there's this one here.
Yeah.
And I
Put a
didn't
red
mean
sticker
to. I
on it.
just, touched it, and that was enough. So did you know you qualified for these challenge caches ahead of time? Did you plan to do them, or was it something you're looking at going, hey, wait, we qualify for that one?
It was a little bit of
When you're-
both. It was a little bit of both. We had seen that there was a trail of challenge caches when we were planning for the trip, and Laura had said, "Oh, let's try and tackle some of these." And then we had a few days in the Airbnb we were staying at in Guildford, and we were doing hikes in County Surrey during that period of time. And while
So you were in Surrey. You
yes,
traveled halfway around the world to be in Surrey.
exactly, yeah, to go to the community right immediately next door to where I live. Yes.
Just making sure you noticed that too. Okay.
Yeah, I did. Oh, and what's funny is there's a community called Guildford in the city of Surrey here in BC as well. And now I understand why. Because it's the new version of the pre-existing one. Anyways, yeah, so we had done some research and then when prior to going into London, Laura was able to do a little bit more, running the geocheckers and yep, qualify for that, qualify. Oh, well, look, we qualify for them all. Great. And so we were able to do that. One of the other things though, that was kind of cool is for quite a while, Laura's been working on a cache or a couple of caches really, in a series called Global Geocaching. And these are puzzle caches that are placed in, I honestly couldn't tell you, I think about a dozen cities around the world. There is one in Vancouver and there's one in Oslo. And we knew we were going there. And um, Laura, and the way that this thing works is you actually have to, it's like a collaborative puzzle. You have to work with people in other areas of the world to get solutions to figure out where these caches are. So Laura was working with a bunch of people from other cities around the world and had finally figured out the coordinates for the Oslo one. And so we added it to our list when we were in Oslo. It's like, okay, we're going to go find this puzzle that you've been working on. And it turned out that it was a lot of fun doing that. So it was really rewarding for Laura to have worked through all of that work and then get one of these that she's got solved, global geocaching puzzle. So that was a target as well. But as I said before, really my real goal was to let geocaching be our tour guide. So I almost kind of flip it on its head. I had some specific places I really wanted to see. I wanted to get to the Prime Meridian. It's just, as a geocacher, but also just as somebody interested in science and geology and cartography. The whole concept was fascinating to me. And they have an amazing museum there in Greenwich that at the Prime Meridian that I would suggest plan to visit that museum. It is mind-boggling the way they walk you through, helping you understand how time is associated with navigation. And it was just, it was amazing. So that was one of the places I wanted to get to. I wanted to get to Notting Hill. I wanted to visit Abbey Road, which coincidentally also has a webcam, which was great. And those are just some of the places in England. There was other places in Hamburg. We went to Hamburg in Germany, and there's an adventure lab and not a multi-cache, letterbox. Yes, a letterbox and an adventure lab that kind of follow the trail of all the places in Hamburg that the Beatles had played in and made famous. So that was kind of fun to do that as well. So things like that. I mean, geocaching really did help us find the places I wanted to see, that I knew I wanted to see, but then also find other places that were proximate to that I hadn't maybe considered. Paddington Station is a great example. We were traveling through Paddington Station, but I didn't realize there is a Paddington Bear statue in Paddington Station.
That's what I was going to ask. Is it
yeah,
named after a certain bear?
and there's a statue there, and there's a virtual cache there, so that was kind of cool, right? Like, it's when things like that happen, and a little bit of serendipity, I guess, but also some planning, and using geocaching as your tour guide worked really, really well. And the video series that is coming out shortly on my channel. Subscribe today, don't miss out. That's going to have lots of highlights of these amazing spots and a lot of fun from that.
Nice.
So you're still logging all these lunch hours and the evenings and.
Yep. Haven't completed logging everything, and in part that's because there were a lot of earth caches. I particularly Paddington is one of Skookum Bear's distant relatives. I did say hi to him. I didn't realize I should say hi to him for you, Skookum Bear. So I apologize for that.
It was his Christmas card.
There, yeah. Geez, wow. Sorry about that, man. The logging activity is taking a while, and one of the key things though is knowing that I wanted to do a lot of earth caches and looking at some of these places, and one of the countries in particular where there's a crazy, or cities, there's a crazy amount of earth caches is Oslo in Norway. Somebody has gone and just filled up Oslo with earth caches. And I mean, honestly, I got to a point where I was doing them with Laura. I was like, you know what? I can pass on some of these. I know it's crazy to hear me say this. I know, but it got to a point.
What did you do with Land Monkey?
It got to a point where they were very repetitive, and it was like, okay, go to the corner of this intersection, look at the side of this building. Now describe the stones. And it's like, you do you do a couple of those, and then you start doing more of those and more of those, and like, okay, I see what they're doing. Like, yes, it is a different type of stone on this different building, but I'm really just doing the same thing again. I'm not
Yeah.
really learning a lot. And for me, one of the main reasons I love earth caches, because I love learning new things. And so when this started to get kind of repetitive in Oslo, I was like, okay, now I did them. And Mrs. Monkey was patient enough to say, oh yeah, this is only going to take, 10 minutes, because now you've got a sense of it. You know what you're doing. You can take photos, make the observations. And what we had done in advance, because again, as I said with the ALs, you're in a foreign country. Not everything's going to be in English. I spent the time and I put together a binder of all the earth caches I thought I might find, translated with Google Translate into English. And I had that binder with me in each city I visited, except for in England, where I didn't need it, but in all of the other countries where earth caches were not. Because I'll tell you, it's one thing to try and do an adventure lab in a foreign language. Trying to do an earth cache in a foreign language is a whole other ball of wax.
JT Coffee would be proud of you and your binder. No,
It was very JT Coffee-esque. Yes.
nice.
It's got all my notes in it.
You somewhat answered my next question is, how are you answering the earth caches? Are you answering in the language they were in along with English?
No, I'm
Here's my
answering them.
English. Here's my translation.
I'm answering them in English, and so far I've had no issues with that. The earth cache answers, or the earth cache owners, occasionally they'll reply to me in
Mhm.
Dutch or German. Now, fortunately, I can read German, so it's not a problem. But I can throw their answer in Google Translate. It says, "Great answers, thank you. Go ahead and log it." Perfect. That's what I needed to see. So yeah, I am answering them in English, and I'm pretty sure the cache owners are taking my English and putting it into Google Translate
Mhm.
into Dutch or Flemish or whatever language the earth cache is in.
Okay. Well, Land Monkey, thanks for being with us tonight. One more question.
Yes.
Dora Moore says, remember to load maps on your GPSR before you go. How
Yeah.
did you go about that? What maps did you load? You were going to multiple countries. Did they all fit? What was your strategy?
I had 3 different sets of maps that I had to use, because we were covering a very large area of Northern Europe on the trip. So I had one for Southern England and Wales, for the first part of our journey. The second part of our journey was kind of northeastern coastal Europe, which was the second part of our journey. And so I had a whole map set that I had downloaded and prepared for that. And then the third set of and these are all open source maps that I was able to grab and download. And the third one was a smaller area, just sort of the Netherlands, Belgium, north of France area there. And so with all of those, basically what I would do is, as I'm transitioning from one area to the next, okay, load the GPS up with that. So you got to have a laptop with you, but I had all the pocket queries and the maps and everything all stored on the laptop in advance, with a backup stored on a portable SD drive, because never trust one
Yeah.
set of data.
Yeah.
2 is 1 and 1 is none.
Exactly. Yes. As all us IT people know. Yeah.
That's right.
Great
That's
question.
Wet Coaster asked or states, when I was in Europe, I found many of the caches were in the local language and English. Not all, but a lot more bilingual or trilingual cache listings that are found here in America.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's because somebody that speaks more than one language is called a polyglot. Somebody that speaks just one language is called an American. So
There you go. But yeah, and
You're
he's right.
right.
There was definitely a lot of the caches that were in the native language, then English, and then sometimes a third language. And that is definitely helpful, but don't depend on that. Don't assume that's going to be the case, is I guess the message I wanted to share.
Well, and I think we have all seen here in the last several weeks uh, cache logs in multiple languages. typically English, the native language in English or vice versa.
Mm-hmm.
So great. Well, Land Monkey, thank you for joining us as a guest this evening. We really appreciate it. And listeners, we hope you enjoyed this episode of Caching in the Northwest.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, I want to take a moment to thank Land Sharks and Gold Country Geotourism, our corporate Denali level sponsors. Remember, folks, landsharks.ca with the Z, LANDSHARKZ.ca is the outdoor adventure and geocaching store. Check them out online. And remember, they're shipping all those online orders daily. And for absolutely amazing geocaching adventures, check out exploregoldcountry.com. And I'm
That's right.
down. There we go. Okay.
And we want to thank our faithful Denali level supporters. That's Land Sharks, Gold Country Geotourism, Team Squirrel, Groovy Owl, and Cachly, that geocaching app that we've talked so much about. If you want to know more about supporting the show, click the Patreon link somewhere on the CachingNW.com website, like Gas Station Tuna did.
And Korsgat.
Kitty Quest.
Oh, he remembered. Alarobrick.
Udak.
Antaeus.
M-Nerve.
Peach of Washington.
The Camp Clan.
Ari, 54321.
Kid Vegas, 19.
Our favorite kitchen appliance, the LG 9000.
MC, 3 Cats.
Ooh. New patron, the Arnott family.
Ooh, a new patron.
Ooh.
Yes.
That's exciting news. All right. Welcome to the family. Logwork.
Acrodoc.
Kev MacD.
Geo Nav Pro.
Segehove.
Tick Magnet.
Donners.
Keats, 94.
You Talks to Rocks.
Just finding our way.
J. Carr.
Flagman.
CRS 98.
B. Pendragon.
Sprouter.
Asking great questions. Doramore.
Wet Coaster.
Skyhawker.
Fairwood West.
Kennel Barb.
Seebeck Tribe.
GSM ×2, giving great answers.
Green Words.
Team Noltex.
Boomer 365, and a happy birthday to Boomer.
Oh.
Oh, it is, isn't it? Yes, it is. Trexer.
Genies.
Subaway Mark.
And of course, Limax.
Of course.
Of course.
Thank you, all
course.
patrons. We appreciate you. And we appreciate everybody that is in the chat participating tonight.
Thank you so much. And thank you for taking the time to listen to this episode of Caching in the Northwest. Your support helps keep the quality shows coming. So if you like the show, click the Patreon link on the CachingNW.com website. Now, if you didn't like the show, let us know what you want us to talk about. In either case, please subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, Spotify, and more. Subscribe and give us a review. Now, if you were in a restaurant, you would leave a tip. If you were in a live audience, you would clap. But since you're on a podcast, leave us a free, fabulous, fast, fantastic 5-star review.
Oh, you've gotten better at that.
Well, you give me a couple of weeks. I get
Practicing. Good job.
Call 253-693-TFTC. I can still do that one too. And leave us a comment, ask us a question, or help us put an eSIM into our phone at any time of the day or night. And of course, you can email us at feedback@CachingNW.com. Join us every Thursday night at 9 p.m. Pacific for a live show and chat. This show is produced by Jim Paulwitz, Chris Umfenauer, and Jay Kennedy, and I got them out of order, but they were all still here. It's licensed under a Creative Commons Attribution 3.0 license, copyright 2022 by Chris Umfenauer. And folks, I ask you to stay tuned for
The After Show.
The After Show.
It's the after show.
Minnie Mag wants to know how many caches you got on your trip.
To be perfectly honest, I'm not 100% sure yet. A lot.
More than 2?
Probably a couple hundred total, but I don't know. I'm still in the process of logging logging through everything. So we're getting close to the end, but there's still work to be done.
GSM times 2 gives this travel service reminder. Don't try to fly back into the United States if only you have a passport card instead of a real passport. Fortunately, I learned this before I left home.
I've never even heard of a passport card versus an actual passport.
I have both. It was an option to get a passport card. It's the size of a driver's license or credit card. So it's very convenient. It does have an RFID chip in it, because as I went through the border, I held mine up, and my wife's, and I noticed the little counter next. I mean, you've got this target that's like 18 inches square. And, it seems like you're 18 feet from it when you dangle those cards out there. I noticed a little counter after it said 2. It's like, hey, there were 2 cards, and I get up there and I was like, did that really read those cards from that distance? Oh, yeah. So I've just been microwaved, right?
So hold on. So, the Nexus cards work like that. And there's something. So is that what you're talking about? Like a Nexus card, or is this something?
No, this is our passport cards.
Huh. Okay.
Yeah.
They look like a driver's license, but they have the passport picture and, passport-y information on it.
Yeah.
I think in Canada,
good for land crossings to Canada, Mexico.
Okay.
So
yeah.
Say we have an enhanced driver's license that you used to be able to use to cross the border. I don't know if you still can or not.
I think this is like one step above that.
Yeah. I've been able to use this. I keep my passport in the safe deposit box, right? So it's not convenient to get to, but I'm not using it all that often. So that's okay. I've been able to use the passport card for, identification for work and insurance and different things where you need another form of identification.
Okay.
And it's all I've ever used at the land border crossing between the U.S. and Canada. I believe it's only good for land. It's not good for sea and air.
You know what? While we're talking about passports and getting into Canada, I assume everybody probably already knows this on the podcast, but the ArriveCan app is no longer mandatory, which happened while we were away. I saw it break on the BBC News, and I was, well, that's good news. So for those who are thinking about coming up to Canada, you can optionally do the ArriveCan app if you really want to, but you no longer mandatorily have to do it. So that's pretty good news.
That's good.
Well, here you go.
Card, so.
Here's everything you ever needed to know. Passport card is good as real ID for TSA and for crossing between U.S. and Canada and U.S. and Mexico at land crossings.
Okay.
IHAM says the passport cards are only accepted in Canada, Mexico, and some parts of the Caribbean or Caribbean.
Probably
Depends
not
on
a land crossing there.
Yeah.
I would think not.
Just saying.
Not a lot of them, no.
Yeah. But real ID is important because unless you have a newer Washington State driver's license, the older Washington State driver's licenses were going to start being not accepted as real ID because they lacked some security features.
And that just amazes me, right? We've known this now for years. Yeah. They put it off a little bit that the Washington State ID is not valid for some reason. I'm like, how hard is that to change?
Yeah.
Go into your, Photoshop application, change the background, change whatever you need to change and reissue it, fix it rather than saying, sorry, it's just not going to work for another 10 years. But come on, people. Okay.
Yeah.
Hold on. I have to step off my soapbox.
Yeah. No, you don't really.
It's your show.
That's right.
It's true. Here's a question. Oh, moving on. Question from Bryling. If you were choosing a new smartphone today, would you pick iPhone or Android? Now, I know that could be an entire show.
Yeah.
But we haven't had a good discussion in the FATAS for a while. And let me tell you, the one selling point for the brand new iPhone 14 is satellite messaging.
I've seen
you get bot-like messaging from your iPhone when you're out of cell range. And for me, that would be the one thing I would upgrade for.
that would be handy. I mean, I already have a satellite messaging
Mhm.
device and service, so I would imagine with the iPhone you have to pay for a subscription for that though. It doesn't just come.
It's supposed to come free with the phone.
What? I
Yes.
doubt that. I
I
find that
I
very hard to believe.
I do too. But I've not seen anything that says otherwise.
Yeah, until you try to use it the first time.
Could be.
Oh, you're in a disaster situation? Oh, your life is on the line? Well,
Would you
just
like to have, we'll charge
give us
$25
$100
to
and
send
we'll
this message.
Yeah, that's right.
Um,
I mean, it is Apple, so
by the way, Bryling thinks we've had a great guest this evening.
there you go. Who is the guest?
So Seaback Tribe says Android all the way. I just don't know anything different.
Yeah.
And MC3 Cat says iPhone all the way. Thanks, Cashley.
Yeah, I mean,
I think dare I say, everybody's pretty set in their camp,
yeah. I think
especially
you're spot on.
camps. Yeah. Bryling's currently on an Android Samsung Galaxy S9, but I've owned iPhone many years ago. Skyhawker is Android using GC Droid, and GC Droid seems to be somewhat abandoned. No longer have a source for downloadable maps.
Interesting.
That's not good.
Android.
Yeah.
Android from Subway Mark.
Yeah,
I carry both every day, so
I have an
phone is
iPhone for work and I have an Android as a personal phone.
Yeah.
And I'm, like I said earlier, I'm shortly going to be upgrading or replacing our personal phone.
Its ends turn to the sandbox.
Yeah. But before I let Wits end up on the soapbox there, I think a lot with some of the other folks that for my personal phone, I'm going to probably just stick with Android. It's a pain in the butt to switch platforms.
Yes, that it is. That I will agree. I tell people it doesn't matter. You're going to find all the same apps, except when it comes to geocaching. We seem to be very us and them.
Yeah.
And by the way, maybe it's not true about the settings. I downloaded maps within the last 2 weeks. So we don't know. Maybe GC Droid is fine. Now, the iPhone satellite note. Available in November 2022, the service is included free for 2 years with the activation of any iPhone 14 model. Connection and response time vary based on location, site conditions, and other factors.
Oh, that's
whether you've paid your bill or not.
That's a lawyer statement right there.
It is. That's interesting though. So 2 years, eh?
And do people keep phone? I keep my phone over 2 years, but does the average person anymore?
Probably not. I definitely keep a phone longer than 2 years, which is why I need to upgrade.
Which, you're buying a high end iPhone of $1,200 to $1,400. I hoping you're keeping it more than 2 years.
Yeah.
You would think.
And therein lies the reason that I'm not in the iPhone camp.
Yeah, I don't buy the high end ones
I can't
anymore.
afford them.
There's no reason to.
Yeah.
But Bryling babies his little phone. He's had it for 4 years now, and I understand it's not a scratch, and it's only been used to order food on Uber on Sundays.
Yes.
So it's a really good phone. If you're looking for a replacement, what would it take today to get you into an iPhone?
Brian's old phone.
Galaxy S9 Plus.
There you go. Too funny.
Okay.
What else we got here?
I think we may be close.
All right. Well, good chat.
Dormore wants to know, are you on the church micro stats page?
So that's a great question.
Is it?
I had heard
because I don't know what it means.
I had heard about the church micros, and I haven't looked to see if I'm on the stats page, but I'm probably not. But we really enjoyed the church micros. So this is a thing in England.
I thought it was information about really small churches.
Yeah, exactly.
Church microstats.
But they hide micro caches, micro-sized caches, sometimes near a church, rarely actually at a church, but the church micro is an entire, like, it's a whole thing. And we've had Subway Mark on before to talk
Yeah.
about the Sidetracked series, and that's another set of caches that when I was in England, I was finding some Sidetracked. Might be fun to have Subway Mark back on to talk about that again sometime. And maybe we can get somebody to come in and talk about the church micros, because I think it was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed during the church micros, and the way that they're organized, and they're actually kind of centrally administered. Like, there's a sequential series of numbers. Like, you actually have to apply uh, to get the number of, like, so like church micro 1052, because you have micro number 1052. Interesting that they're not all micros, and they're not all traditionals. Like, a lot of them were multis. We did some Where I Goes, we did Earth Cache church micros.
So they're having trouble with the concept.
No, they've done a wonderful job with the concept. And I mean, the thing is, like, you're in a place where there's so many of these amazing old churches in, like, the craziest places. And so
Mhm.
it's a great idea for a series. It's a lot of fun. I really enjoyed doing those, and I really enjoyed the Sidetrack series as well. So yeah, I would love to hear more about that from future guests.
Perfect. We'll have to work on that. If you know about the church micro series or the Sidetrack series, contact me at feedback@cachingNW.com. That's feedback@cachingNW.com. Order now. Anywhere I goes in the church micro.
In the church micro, yes, yep. So Chris Brook would be pleased with them also. Operators are standing by. That's right. Your call is important to us.
It will be answered. The order was received.
Folks, thank you so much for joining us tonight. Thank you for a fun after show. And until next week, get out and get caching.